Very good morning, dear students. Myself, Smita Bernardine Saldana, lecturer in chemistry. Welcome back to Bridge Course. In our last session, we have studied Introduction to Chemistry. Now, in that we have studied what is chemistry, chemistry around us, the importance and scopes of chemistry, branches of chemistry. Now, in today's session, let us go to study some of the basic concepts of chemistry. Now, starting with the definition of chemistry. What is chemistry? As you all know, chemistry is a branch of science that deals with composition, structure and properties of matter. Now, what is this matter? Matter is anything that has mass and it will occupy space. Now, example for matter, you can consider anything that is around you. So, things or the stuffs around you are example for matter. For example, the air that we breathe, or water, or you can consider your book or pen or pencil, earth or moon, sun. So, all these are examples for matter. Then, the two important constituents of matter are atoms and molecules. Now, before I move on to atoms and molecules, let us see what is an element. Now, regarding the element, you have already studied. Element is chemically the simplest substance and hence cannot be broken down using chemical reactions. It is the simplest substance and you cannot break down this using any chemical reactions. Now, regarding elements, we study in the periodic table. Now, in the periodic table, according to the present periodic table, we know 118 elements. 118 elements are known to us. Now, based on their properties, the different elements are classified in the modern periodic table. Now, going back to atoms and molecules, let us see what is an atom. Atom is the smallest particle of an element that can exist. So, atom is the smallest particle of an element that can exist, whereas molecule is the smallest particle of matter which is capable of independent existence. This is the smallest particle of matter and it is capable of independent existence. How are these molecules formed? Now, number of atoms may be atoms of the same element or atoms of different elements combined together and they will form molecule. So, I can call molecule is nothing but cluster of atoms. Group of atoms bonded together and they will form molecule. Now, you have studied different models of atom. Now, according to the models of atoms that we study, in the case of atom, most of the mass in the case of atom is concentrated at the center. So, the central part of the atom we call it as nucleus. This nucleus contains protons and neutrons and the electrons are revolving around the nucleus. This is in the case of atom. Now, if you have to understand the size of atom, I can tell you, if I consider a person who is weighing 70 kgs, person having a body weight of 70 kgs will have 7 into 10 to the power 27 atoms in his body. So, if your weight is 70 kgs, then you will have 7 into 10 to the power 27 atoms. That is 7 followed by 27 zeros. So, there are millions and millions and millions of atoms in our body. If you consider a grain of sand, a grain of sand, you know how big it is. It is a minute thing that will contain millions of atoms in it. Okay, and you must have studied the Rutherford's model of atom. According to Rutherford's model of atom, most of the space in the atom is empty. So now, for example, to make you understand, if I magnify the size of atom, and if I get the size of atom equivalent to a cricket ball, and if I place a cricket ball at one point, then the radius of the atom will be 5 kilometers away from that point. So you can imagine the size of atom and the size of nucleus. So most of the space in the atom is empty, and if you remove all those empty spaces present, then the entire human population or the entire human race will fit into a single apple. So that much of space in the atom is empty. Now in the case of molecules, atom I told you, here you have nucleus and the electrons are revolving around the nucleus. Molecule, you can see here there are some points. Now here, this is one point, the here one, the blue color that you see here, black things, like there are so many points that you see in this molecule. Now all these points are individual atoms. So you can see in this particular molecule there are so many atoms. There are so many atoms that are combined together. They are bonded together. So this is cluster of atom. So this is regarding atom and molecule. Now let us move on to the examples for atoms and molecules. Now examples for atoms, I can consider hydrogen atom. Hydrogen atom is written using the symbol H. Atom of helium is represented with the symbol He. So here I am using a single letter, whereas in the case of helium I am using two letters. Then in the case of oxygen, the symbol used is O, again single letter. Nitrogen atom is represented with the symbol N. Copper atom is represented with the symbol Cu, and then sodium atom is represented with the symbol Na. Regarding the symbols, we will study later. I will give you some examples for the molecules. Coming to the examples of molecules, here you can see hydrogen molecule. How is it formed? It is formed by the combination of two hydrogen atoms. In the previous slide, you have seen hydrogen atom is represented with the symbol H. Now, hydrogen molecule is represented as H2. So, this is called formula of hydrogen molecule. Now, this is a diatomic molecule. Diatomic means two atoms are combined to give a single molecule. Oxygen molecule is also diatomic. In the formation of oxygen molecule, two atoms of oxygen, they combine to form a molecule of oxygen. Now individual entity will be atom, and the result what you get is a molecule. Similarly, chlorine molecule is also diatomic. It is formed by the combination of two chlorine atoms. They combine to form chlorine molecule, and the formula that we use here is Cl2. Now here you must have observed that we use some subscripts to indicate number of atoms present in that particular molecule. Now coming to ozone molecule. Ozone, you all are very familiar with this. It protects the earth's surface from UV radiations of the sun. So ozone molecule is formed by the combination of three oxygen atoms. One molecule of ozone contains three oxygen atoms in it. Similarly, a molecule of sulfur, the formula is S8. It contains 8 sulfur atoms in it. So I can say this is octaatomic molecule, whereas ozone is triatomic molecule. Similarly, if you consider phosphorus molecule, it will have 4 atoms of phosphorus combined together. So it is a tetraatomic molecule, and the formula we write it as P4. Formula is written as P4, that is a molecule of phosphorus. Now, in addition to this, there are other molecules also, but here in this case the difference is these are formed by combination of 2 or more different types of elements. In the previous case, what we have observed is that all of them are formed by the combination of same type of element. But here you can see water molecule, or in the case of methane molecule, they are formed by the combination of 2 or more different types of elements. Now, such type of substances are called as compounds also. Okay, so all the compounds are molecules, but all the molecules are not compounds. Now I cannot call these as compounds. They are only molecules, but these can be compounds as well as molecules. In a molecule of water, there is 1 atom of oxygen that is combining with 2 atoms of hydrogen. Similarly, a molecule of methane consists of 1 atom of carbon which is combining with 4 atoms of hydrogen. So these are some of the examples for atoms and molecules. Now, while discussing examples for atoms and molecules, I have used the term chemical symbol or chemical formula. Now let us see what is the meaning of chemical symbol. Now, chemical symbol is the abbreviation used in chemistry for chemical elements. It is the abbreviation used in chemistry for chemical elements. It is a shortened way to represent an element, and then it helps us to identify the elements and atoms in a chemical formula easily. So this is regarding chemical symbols. Now, how to write the chemical symbols? There are 2 ways of writing the chemical symbol, that is, either you can use single letter, 1 letter, or you can use 2 letters. Now there are 4 ways of writing the symbol. The first one is you are using the first letter of the name of the element. So using the first letter of the name of the elements, you can write symbol for some of the elements. But remember, this cannot be used in the case of all 118 elements that are known to us. Now why? What is the reason behind this? Most of the time what happens is name of more than 1 element starts with the same letter. Now for example, name of hydrogen, it starts with H, and similarly name of helium starts with H. Now the symbol H will be given for hydrogen, so I cannot use the same symbol for helium. So here the first method is we are using first letter of name of the element. Example for this, you can consider hydrogen, where the first letter H is taken as a symbol. In the case of boron, the first letter B is taken as a symbol. In the case of carbon, we consider C as a symbol. Nitrogen is represented as N. Oxygen, the symbol used is O. In the case of sulfur, we use the symbol S. Phosphorus, the first letter P is used as a symbol. In the case of iodine, I is used as a symbol. So like this, there are a few elements where the symbol is derived from the first letter of the name. Now, the second way of writing the symbol is with the help of two letters. So, we take the first two letters of their name to write symbol for the elements. Now, for example, consider helium. As already mentioned, since hydrogen and helium, the two elements, name starts with the same letter H, I cannot use H for both. Since H is already given to hydrogen, helium is represented using the first two letters. So, the symbol used for helium is He. In the case of lithium, we use the first two letters, so it becomes Li. In the case of aluminium, again the first two letters, that is A and L, is used. Argon, again we use the first two letters Ar to represent. Calcium is mentioned or represented using Ca. So here you have to remember one more thing. Whenever you are using a single word, that letter, whenever you are using a single letter, that letter has to be a capital letter. And whenever you are using two letters, first letter will be capital, whereas the second letter will be a small letter. Then the third way of writing the symbol, again it is using two letters. But here we are taking first letter and the next prominent letter in the name of the element. So here we are not taking the first and the second, instead first and the next prominent letter is used to write the symbol. In this case also, first letter has to be capital and the second letter should be small letter. Example, in the case of magnesium, the symbol used is Mg, where M is the first letter and G is the third letter in the name of the element. Similarly, in the case of chlorine, we use first and third letter to write the symbol. Chromium also, we are using first letter and next prominent letter, so the symbol becomes Cr. To represent zinc, we use the symbol Zn. Here also we are using the first letter and next prominent letter. Now this is one more way of writing the symbol. Now there is another way to write the symbol, that is, names of certain elements are derived from their original Latin or Greek or German names. So there are a few elements in the periodic table where name is originated from their original Latin or Greek or even German names. For example, consider the element sodium. In the case of sodium, the symbol that we use is Na. Again here, the first letter will be capital, the second letter will be a small letter. So Na, you can see it is not there in the name. N is not there, even A is also not there. Now this symbol is derived from its original Latin name, that is natrium. Similarly, in the case of potassium, the symbol that we use K is derived from its Latin name kalium. In the case of antimony, Sb, symbol Sb is derived from its Latin name stibium. In the case of copper, again the symbol is derived from its Latin name cuprum. Gold, if I take as an example, in the case of gold, the name is derived from its original name aurum, so the symbol becomes Au. In the case of silver, again symbol is derived from its original Latin name, that is argentum. So the symbol becomes Ag. Lead, the symbol used is Pb, which is derived from its Latin name plumbum. In the case of iron, the symbol used is Fe, and this is also derived from the Latin name, that is ferrum. In the case of tin, the symbol used is Sn, and this symbol again is derived from the original Latin name, it is stannum. In the case of mercury, the symbol Hg is derived from the Greek original name hydrargyrum. And in the case of tungsten, tungsten is represented with the symbol W. This symbol is derived from the original German name, that is wolfram. So like this, you can write symbols for different elements. So they are either derived from the first letter of their name, or you can use first two letters of their name, or the first letter and the next prominent letter can be used, or in some cases the symbols are derived from their original Greek, Latin or German names. Next, moving on to chemical formulas. Now, what are chemical formulas? While discussing the examples for molecules, I said formula of the molecule is written like this. So, chemical formulas are nothing but notations used to show the number and type of atoms present in a molecule. So, formulas are nothing but notations used to show the number and type of atoms present in a molecule. Now, we will consider examples for writing the chemical formulas. For example, now in the previous thing we have studied how to write the symbol for some of the elements. Now if I consider hydrogen molecule. Hydrogen molecule is formed by the combination of two hydrogen atoms. So the chemical formula for hydrogen molecule is written as H2. Now chemical formula for oxygen atom is written as O2. Similarly, if I consider a molecule of nitrogen, the chemical formula becomes N2, because nitrogen molecule is formed by the combination of two nitrogen atoms. Similarly, if I consider a molecule of glucose, glucose formula is C6H12O6. So in the case of simple molecules, we write the formula like this, that is by taking the numbers of atoms combining together. And then in the case of compound, there are some rules to write the chemical formula. Now let us see the rules used to write the chemical formulas in the case of certain compounds. Now first, what you have to do? You have to write down the symbols of elements or ions side by side. So you have to first write the symbols of the elements that are combining or ions side by side. Then write down the valency of each element or ion. Write down the valency of each element or ion. Now regarding this ion and the term valency, I'll be telling you what these terms are later. And then third one, you have to interchange the valencies of the elements or ions and written as the subscripts, or you are crossing the valencies of the elements or the ions, and whatever number that you get while crossing, that number is written as the subscript. Sometimes here you have to remember one thing: when you are crossing the valencies, you will end up with 1. So whenever you get 1, that 1 is not written as the subscript. Or in some cases, there will be a common number. So while crossing, if you have a common number on both the elements or ions, then you have to remove the common number. Then whatever number is left, that is written as the subscript. Then in the case of polyatomic ions are ions formed by the combination of more than one different types of elements. Polyatomic ions or radicals must be written inside the bracket. So when you are writing the subscript, the polyatomic ions or radicals should be written inside the bracket and the subscript is written outside the bracket. And then the final formula must be written without any charge. In the final formula, there should not be positive or negative charge. So these are the rules used to follow chemical formulas for compounds. Now here I have used certain terms like ion or valency. We'll see what are these ions or valencies. Ions are the atom or molecule. Ion is the atom or molecule having net electrical charge. So ion is formed when you are removing the electrons or when you are adding the electrons. So whenever you are removing the electron from an atom, it results in the formation of positively charged ion, and that is called as cation. So whenever electrons are removed from an atom, we will get positively charged ion or cation. Similarly, when electrons are added to the outermost shell of an atom, then it results in the formation of negatively charged ion, which are called as anions. So cation is formed by loss of electron, whereas anion is formed by gain of electrons. Then talking about valency. Valency can be considered as combining capacity of an element. Valency is the combining capacity of an element. Or in terms of electrons also you can define valency. It is a number of electrons lost, gained or even shared in bonding with one or more atoms. So valency is either the combining capacity or it is number of electrons lost, gained or shared when the chemical bonds are formed. Now the combining capacity of an element is normally measured with respect to hydrogen. Since hydrogen has a capacity to form compounds or molecules combining with other elements, hydrogen is taken as a standard here. Now for example, I will consider the molecule HCl. In the HCl molecule, one atom of chlorine combines with one atom of hydrogen. So now here when I say combining capacity, you have to count number of atoms of hydrogen combining with one atom of that particular element. So valency will be number of atoms of hydrogen that is combining with one atom of the element. So since here one atom of chlorine is combining with one atom of hydrogen, valency of chlorine is considered to be 1. Now for example, I will consider water molecule. In the water molecule, one atom of oxygen combines with two atoms of hydrogen. So what is the valency of oxygen here? Valency of oxygen is 2. Similarly, if I consider ammonia molecule, in the case of ammonia, one atom of nitrogen is combining with 3 atoms of hydrogen. So what is the valency of nitrogen here? It is 3. So this is the meaning of combining capacity of an element. Then talking about number of electrons lost, gained or shared. Now, for example, if I consider sodium atom is represented as Na. I already told you, whenever atom loses electron, then it will get a positive charge. So if I am going to remove an electron from sodium, then sodium becomes ion and it is written as Na plus. Removing one electron from sodium, sodium gets a positive charge. Similarly, magnesium atom can lose 2 electrons. So when I remove 2 electrons from magnesium atom, what is formed? It is magnesium ion. Since I have removed 2 electrons, the charge becomes 2 plus. So this is the meaning of loss of electron. Now gaining the electron. For example, consider chlorine atom. An atom of chlorine has the capacity to gain 1 electron. It will have 7 electrons in its valence shell. You have studied about the octet rule. So to satisfy 8 electronic configuration, chlorine will receive 1 electron. While receiving 1 electron, what charge it gets? It will get a negative charge. So the symbol for chloride ion is written as Cl minus. So this is called as chlorine, whereas this is named as chloride ion. Sodium, sodium ion. Magnesium, magnesium ion. So here in this case, it is the electron that has been gained. So you have added an electron to get a negative charge. Now talking about the valency in this case. Since sodium has lost 1 electron, valency of sodium becomes 1. And magnesium has lost 2 electrons, therefore valency of magnesium will be 2. Chlorine has received an electron, so the valency of chlorine will be 1. And then in some cases, sharing of electrons will happen. Now I will consider a covalent molecule, that is HCl. Now in this molecule, there is mutual sharing of electrons during the bond formation between hydrogen and chlorine. So that bond I will represent with a dash. So now here, if you see the electronic configuration of hydrogen, hydrogen atom has only 1 electron. So to become stable, it needs 1 more electron. It has to acquire the configuration of helium. We call it as duplet state. So that 1 electron it will receive from chlorine. Here it is not completely receiving, it is mutual sharing of electrons. Similarly, chlorine in its valence shell has 7 electrons. So to obtain the octet configuration, it needs 1 electron. So therefore, it is receiving the electron from hydrogen. So hydrogen will share 1 electron with chlorine and chlorine will share 1 electron with hydrogen. Now the 2 electrons that are shared, they belong to both the atoms. So hydrogen will complete its duplet state and chlorine will complete its octet state. Now in this case, how many electrons are shared? Hydrogen is sharing 1 electron, so the valency of hydrogen becomes 1. Similarly, since chlorine is also sharing 1 electron, valency of chlorine becomes 1. So this is the meaning of valency. Then while talking about the rules, you have come across a term radical. Okay, so the word radical is used in different fields with different meaning. Now when I'm talking about an inorganic compound or a salt, inorganic salt, radical is an atom or group of atoms possessing electrical charge. It is an atom or group of atoms possessing electrical charge. Whereas in organic chemistry, radical will be a species having an unpaired electron. So here we will consider the inorganic concept. So the radical can be positively charged or negatively charged. Under radicals, there are two types, acid radical and basic radical. Now acid radical is derived from the acids by removing a proton. Proton is H plus ions. Whereas basic radical is derived from bases. For example, if I consider the acid HCl, when I remove the proton, what is obtained? It is Cl minus, chloride radical. This is an acid radical. If I consider a base, that is sodium hydroxide, in sodium hydroxide, removing the OH minus ion, what do we get? That is Na plus. That is an example for basic radical. So acid radical is obtained from an acid and basic radical is derived from a base. Now next we shall see examples of certain ions along with their valencies in order to study to write chemical formula. Now here you can see there are some ions, positively charged ions, some negatively charged ions given along with their valencies. Sodium ion is represented as Na plus. Since it has lost one electron, valency will be 1. Similarly, hydrogen ion is formed by loss of one electron, so the valency is again 1. So this column is common for both the sides. Potassium ion is again formed by losing one electron. Silver ion is also formed by losing one electron. In the case of copper 1 ion, one electron is lost. In all these cases, valency will be 1. And coming to negatively charged ions, chloride is formed by gaining one electron. When bromine receives an electron, it becomes bromide ion. Iodine receives one electron to form iodide ion. In this case also, valency will be 1. In the case of magnesium ion, magnesium atom will lose 2 electrons, so the valency becomes 2. Calcium also loses 2 electrons and the valency will be 2, whereas oxide is formed by gaining 2 electrons. When oxygen atom gains 2 electrons, you will get oxide ion. Here also valency will be 2. Zinc ion is formed by loss of 2 electrons, so the valency remains 2. Iron in the +2 oxidation state, that is iron 2 we write, again it is losing 2 electrons, so valency is 2. Copper 2, see some of the elements you can see, they are present in variable oxidation states. For example, copper, I have written it as Cu plus as well as Cu2 plus. Similarly, iron can exist in +2 state or in +3 state. It depends on how many electrons are lost. So, in the case of Cu2 plus, again valency becomes 2. Now coming to aluminium, when aluminium atom loses 3 electrons, it will get +3 charge and the valency becomes 3. Iron in the +3 state, again valency will be 3. Coming to negatively charged ions, sulfide is formed by gaining 2 electrons. Sulfur, when it gains 2 electrons, we get sulfide ion having a valency 2. Whereas in the case of nitride, nitrogen is receiving 3 electrons, hence the valency becomes 3. So in order to write the formula, what we have to do? First we have to write down the symbols for the elements or symbols for the ions side by side. First you have to write the symbol for the cation and then you will write symbol for the anion. And then you are writing the valencies and then in the next step you are going to cross the valencies. Now some more examples for ions. All these are simple ions. There are polyatomic ions also. So some examples I have given here. Okay, so these also can be used. Here you can see all these ions are formed by the combination of more than one element. There are some positively charged polyatomic ions and there are so many negatively charged polyatomic ions. Now with the help of these two charts, we will try to write the chemical formulas for some of the compounds. First example, I am going to consider magnesium chloride. Now what is the symbol used for magnesium? It is Mg, and the symbol used for chlorine will be Cl. Now I am going to consider magnesium ion. From the previous table, you know magnesium has the capacity to lose 2 electrons. So what will be the valency? It becomes 2 plus. Chloride ion will have single negative charge. It is Cl minus, 1 minus. Now first step, we have written the symbols for metal ions side by side. As I told you, cation is written first, then the anion is written. Next, you are going to cross the valencies. Okay, you are multiplying the valency. So while crossing the valency, what happens? Whatever number you have here, that will come as a subscript for this element. Number that you have here becomes a subscript of magnesium. And I already told you, if the number is 1, you are not going to write that. And if there is a common number, you need to remove the common number and then you have to write the formula. And in the final formula, there should not be a charge. Now, we don't have a common number. There is 2 here and there is 1. So now the formula of magnesium chloride becomes MgCl2. Why MgCl2? Because we have crossed the valency. So the 2 that is present here comes as a subscript for chlorine. Second example, I am considering the formula for calcium oxide. Now calcium ion, the symbol is Ca2 plus. Oxide ion, symbol is O2 minus. What do you see? The valencies of both the elements are same. So when you have a common number, while crossing, you need to remove the common number. So when I take out 2, since it is common, 1 remains and 1 should not be written in the final formula, and therefore calcium oxide will have the formula CaO. Then the third example, that is copper nitrate. Now copper here we are taking in the +2 oxidation state. So the charge on copper is Cu2 plus. So I'm writing Cu2 plus first. Nitrate, the symbol is NO3 minus. Now, while crossing the valencies, what you get? 2 comes here, 1 should not be written. Now, since this is not a simple ion, since it is a polyatomic ion, what we have to do? Before writing 2 as subscript, this has to be placed inside the bracket. So, now finally what we get will be NO3 2 times. So, that 2 is written as the subscript. Before that, you have to cover the particular polyatomic ion inside the bracket. So, the final formula for copper nitrate becomes CuNO3 twice. So, this is copper 2 nitrate. Next, how to write the chemical formula for aluminium chloride? Now, aluminium, the symbol is Al3 plus and chloride is Cl minus. Now, when I cross the valency, 3 comes here. Since it is a simple ion, you need not use the bracket. So, the final formula becomes AlCl thrice. Now, should I write 1 here? No. Why? Whenever the number is 1, you are not going to write it in the final formula. So, 3 will be written as the subscript for chlorine. So, the final formula becomes AlCl3. Similarly, writing the formula for calcium carbonate. Now, calcium, the symbol is Ca2 plus and the carbonate ion symbol is CO3 2 minus. Simple ion, this is a polyatomic ion. We call it as compound ion. Now, while crossing, what do you see? There is a common number. So, you have to remove the common number and then write the formula. Now, is it required to put the bracket for the polyatomic ion? Here it is not required because we don't have any number written as the subscript. So, the final formula is written as CaCO3, calcium carbonate. One more example, name is not given here, it is ammonium hydroxide. Ammonium ion, the symbol is NH4 plus and hydroxide ion is OH minus. Now, for example, from water, when you remove a proton, what do you get? Hydroxide ion, H2O. Removing one H plus will give you OH minus. Now, writing the formula for ammonium hydroxide, you don't have any number. So, when you don't have any number, it is considered to be 1. And whenever you have 1, that is not written as the subscript. So, in the case of ammonium hydroxide, the formula becomes NH4OH. So, the final formula is NH4OH. Now, here this is a polyatomic ion, this is also polyatomic ion. Why we are not using the bracket? Because we don't have anything left to write it as a subscript. So, when you have to write a subscript, a number as a subscript, then you have to cover it with the bracket, otherwise it is not required. One more important thing that you have to know while studying chemistry is chemical equations. Now, what are chemical equations? Chemical equations are symbolic representation of a chemical reaction in the form of symbols and formulas. Symbolic representation of a chemical reaction in the form of symbols and formulas are called as chemical equations. Now, example we will consider. For example, I am considering the combustion of carbon, a combustion reaction. Carbon combines with oxygen and it will liberate carbon dioxide. Now in this reaction, while writing the equation, you have to write the element or the compound that is involved in the reaction. Reactants are written on the left side of the arrow. You see there is an arrow that indicates direction of the reaction. Now here this arrow indicates that is reaction is moving towards the right side. Reactants are converted into products. So here whatever you have written on the left side of the arrow are called as reactants, and what is written on the right side of the arrow is the product, or you can have more than one products sometimes. So they are either product or products. Then in some cases you can see conditions like temperature, pressure, catalyst used will be mentioned above the arrow. So here I have written it separately. For example, if I consider preparation of ammonia, in that case the temperature used is 450 to 500 degrees Celsius, could be written here above the arrow. Similarly, the pressure that is used also could be written along with the catalyst used. So the complete information can be written in a single equation. Like for example, now that equation can be written as N2, that is gas dinitrogen, combining with 3 molecules of dihydrogen, which is a gas. You have a double-headed arrow indicating reversible reaction. This reaction can happen left to right as well as right to left. So here the product produced is 2 molecules of ammonia, that is also a gas. So reactants and the products are gases. So now here in the previous equation, carbon is a solid, dioxygen, you know, oxygen in nature exists as gas, carbon dioxide is a gas. So whatever we write here are called as physical states. So you can mention the physical states of reactants and products. Now in the preparation of ammonia, these conditions could be written above and below the arrow. Like see here for example, pressure for this reaction is 150 to 200. So I can write 150 to 200 atmosphere, indicating that is a pressure required, and temperature is 450 to 500 degrees Celsius. You can express in terms of Kelvin scale also, and then you can even mention the catalyst that is used. So the entire thing can be represented in a single equation like this. You can observe in the first equation there are no numbers written beside the symbols of elements or the compounds, whereas in the second equation there is no number near nitrogen, but you have a number near hydrogen and ammonia molecule. So when you have to write these numbers, and what are they? The numbers written near the formulas here at this place are called as stoichiometric coefficients. So whatever we write here for the formula, that is a subscript, and in case if you are writing some number near the element on the left side, then it is stoichiometric coefficient. Now these numbers are used to balance the equation. Now why you have to balance the equation? You have already studied law of conservation of mass. So in order to satisfy law of conservation of mass, the balancing the equation is necessary. What is law of conservation of mass? Mass can neither be created nor be destroyed during a chemical reaction. So whatever mass of the reactants you take, the atoms of different elements, the mass of those elements on the right side also should be the same. Now in the first equation, there is one atom of carbon. On the right side, that is in the product side also, there is one atom of carbon. So it is balanced. Mass on the left side is equal to mass on the right side. Similarly, 2 atoms of oxygens you have here. In the product also, there are 2 atoms of oxygen. So therefore, this is a balanced equation. Now coming to this, 2 atoms of nitrogen reacts with 3 molecules of hydrogen. Now here, there are 2 atoms of nitrogen. In the product, if I don't have this number, if it is only NH3, there will be only 1 atom of nitrogen. So to balance this, here you are supposed to write 2. So this is the stoichiometric coefficient. Now, hydrogen, if I don't have this, then it will be only H2. In the product, the formula of ammonia is NH3. The subscript you cannot change. So, to balance the number of hydrogen atoms on left and right, here I am taking 2 molecules of ammonia. That is, to balance nitrogen, we have already written 2. So, 2 into 3, it becomes 6 atoms of hydrogen. So to balance that here, if you are taking only H2, to make it equal to what you have on the product side, it will be 3 molecules of hydrogen. So it becomes 3 into 2, 6 atoms of hydrogen. So balancing the chemical equation is very important. Now next we shall study the rules that are required for balancing the chemical equation. Now to balance the chemical equation, there are different methods available. So one is trial and hit method. Now in this method, what you have to do is identify the reactants and the products in the reaction and write their chemical formulae. So first you should identify what are the reactants and what are the products, and you're supposed to write their formulas. Now where to write the formulas for the reactants and products? Write the equation by putting the reactants on the left of the arrow and the products on the right side. So arrow will be at the center, reactants will be on the left, products will be on the right. After writing the formula, you have to check whether the equation is balanced. That is, count the number of atoms of each element in the reactants and number of atoms of each element in the products. You are supposed to count the number of atoms of each element in the reactants and number of atoms of each element in the products. If you have same number on both the sides, that means equation is balanced. If not, then if the equation is not balanced, change the coefficient. What is coefficient? I said stoichiometric coefficient. So change the coefficient of the molecule until the number of atoms of each element on either side of the equation balance. So you are not supposed to change the subscript, you are changing only the stoichiometric coefficient till you get a balanced equation. Now for example, we will consider a chemical reaction where calcium hydroxide is reacting with carbon dioxide and it is producing calcium carbonate and water. Now what are the reactants in this reaction? Calcium hydroxide and carbon dioxide are the reactants. Calcium carbonate and water are the products. You have already studied how to write the formula for molecules and compounds. So now using that information, you can write the formula for the equation. Calcium hydroxide formula will be CaOH twice. Carbon dioxide is CO2 and the product carbon calcium carbonate is CaCO3. This we have already studied. And water, the formula is H2O. So, after writing the reactants and products, you have to check whether the equation is balanced. Now here, there is one atom of calcium on the left side. Right side, only in this formula you can see calcium, and there is only one atom. So, mass of calcium on left and right is same. Now coming to oxygen or hydrogen. If I consider oxygen, you can see some number is written here as a subscript and you see a bracket there. Now the meaning is this 2 is common for oxygen as well as hydrogen. That means there are 2 atoms of oxygen and 2 atoms of hydrogen. Now on the left side, if I count number of oxygens, in both the formulas there are oxygens. Here there are 2 atoms of oxygens, and in carbon dioxide also you have 2 atoms of oxygen. Together you have 4 atoms of oxygens on the left side. Now moving on to the right side, calcium carbonate has 3 atoms of oxygen, and in the water molecule there is 1 atom of oxygen. So together again here it will be 4. So mass of oxygen is also equal on both the sides. Coming to hydrogen, there are 2 atoms of hydrogen on the left side. This doesn't have hydrogen, so here only 2 atoms of hydrogens you have. And coming to the products, only one compound that contains hydrogen, so that is water, where you have 2 atoms of hydrogen, so that is also balanced. Then carbon, there is no carbon in the first formula. Carbon dioxide has 1 carbon atom and your calcium carbonate has 1 carbon atom. So now number of atoms of different elements on the left side is equal to number of atoms of different elements on the right side, and therefore this is a balanced chemical equation. Here you have to remember one more thing. Now in case if you have a stoichiometric coefficient anywhere, okay, now for example if here there is a number, then you have to multiply that number with this to get number of atoms of oxygen and number of atoms of hydrogen. Now for example, in case if the stoichiometric coefficient was 2, if the stoichiometric coefficient was 2, then we will get 2 atoms of calcium. This 2 is common for the entire formula. So there will be 2 atoms of calcium. To get the number of atoms of oxygen, what you have to do? This and this number has to be multiplied. So oxygen, 2 into 2, we will get 4 atoms of oxygen. Hydrogen also, since this is common for both the elements and this number is common for the entire formula, 2 into 2 you will get 4 atoms of hydrogen. So whenever you have a stoichiometric coefficient, keep this in mind. We will consider another example in balancing the chemical equation. Okay. Now in this particular equation, iron combines with steam. Steam is gaseous state of water and it will produce magnetite, ferric oxide. Magnetite you must have heard, it is the mineral of iron, and releases hydrogen gas. Now this is the skeletal equation. Now check whether it is balanced. There is 1 iron atom on the left side, but you see there are 3 iron atoms on the right. Number of oxygens are also not balanced. So this equation is not a balanced equation. Now while balancing such equation, what you have to do is, in case if the equation has number of compounds in it, select a compound that contains maximum number of elements. So here iron is single element, hydrogen, that is also single element. So maximum number of elements I can find in water and in Fe3O4. So I will select Fe3O4 because number of atoms of different elements are more here. So now I will start balancing the element that is present in greater amount. Here I can see there are 4 atoms of oxygen, whereas on the left side there is only 1 atom of oxygen. Now to balance number of oxygens on both the sides, what you have to do? You have to write 4 as stoichiometric coefficient for water. Now what happens? Number of oxygen atoms on the left becomes equal to number of oxygen atoms on the right side. Next, moving on to another element in the same compound, that is iron. Now on the left side you see there is only 1 iron, 1 atom of iron, whereas on the right side there are 3 atoms of iron. So now to make it equal, again I have to use 3 as stoichiometric coefficient. Now can I write that as a subscript here? No. Why? Because in nature iron exists as Fe, whereas hydrogen exists as H2. So that formula you cannot change. So whatever number you get has to be written as a stoichiometric coefficient. Now balancing iron, so the formula that we get or the equation that we get becomes 3 atoms of iron combining with 4 molecules of water, and you will have 1 molecule of magnetite and 1 molecule of hydrogen, where number of atoms of iron on both the sides are balanced, number of atoms of oxygen are balanced. While balancing oxygen, you must have observed one more thing. While writing 4 here, it will change the number of atoms of hydrogen. So you see in this equation, iron and oxygen is balanced, whereas hydrogen is not balanced. On the left side you have 4 into 2, 8 atoms of hydrogen, whereas on the right there are only 2 atoms of hydrogen. So now to balance that, what have to do? Since you already have 2 here, to make it 8 together, I have to write 4 as a stoichiometric coefficient. Now check whether complete equation is balanced. 3 atoms of iron on the left, there are 3 on the right. 4 into 2, 8 atoms of hydrogen on the left, 4 into 2, 8 atoms of hydrogen on the right side. 4 atoms of oxygens you have on the left side. So here there are again 4 atoms of oxygen. So iron, oxygen and hydrogen, all the elements are balanced. Now if you want to write the physical state, now while telling the equation I told you, iron combines with steam. How do iron exist in nature? Which physical state it has? It is solid. So solid combines with, when I say steam, it is a gaseous form of water. So inside the bracket as a subscript you are going to write G. And hematite, you know, it is once again solid. So S is written here. Dihydrogen is a gas. That is how it exists in nature, isn't it? So the physical state is written as G. So that was about trial and hit method. Now we'll study one more method that is available for balancing the chemical equation. See, most of the time what happens is the chemical reaction will not happen in a single step. It will happen in series of different steps. Only for the simple reactions you can use the previous method to balance. Whereas if the reaction is complex, then that method cannot be used. It will take so much of time. So in such cases you can use one more method, that is partial equation method. Whenever a reaction takes place in series of steps, this method can be used. Now for example, I am going to consider reaction of zinc with dilute nitric acid to form zinc nitrate, ammonium nitrate and water. So the reactants in this equation are zinc and dilute nitric acid, and the products are zinc nitrate, ammonium nitrate and water. What you observe here is that some of the elements are appearing in more than one compound. So it will take a lot of time to balance this equation using the previous method. So having the knowledge of different steps involved in this equation, you can easily balance this chemical equation. The reaction actually happens in 3 steps. Now what are those 3 steps? First, zinc combines with dilute nitric acid and it will produce zinc nitrate and nascent oxygen. Nascent hydrogen. Nascent hydrogen is elemental form of hydrogen which is highly reactive. So nascent hydrogen is represented writing the symbol H inside the square bracket. In the second step, dilute nitric acid combines with this nascent hydrogen that is released to give ammonia and water. And in the third step, ammonia combines with dilute nitric acid to form one more product, that is ammonium nitrate. Now when I add the 3 reactions, the common things that are present, they get cancelled. Now what happens here? Zinc you have on the left side, I am considering in all the 3 reactions, zinc is present only in one place. So you can write down that here. HNO3 comes in 3 places, 1, 2, 3. So it will be 3 molecules of HNO3. Hydrogen is present, nascent hydrogen is present on the left as well as on the right. So that gets cancelled. Now see, if you have similar things on one side of the arrow, you have to add. If you have same thing on opposite side of the arrow, you have to cancel. So HNO3 gets added up, it will be 3 moles here, whereas nascent hydrogen will be cancelled. And then ammonia appears on the left side here, whereas it is on the right side, that also gets cancelled. Now among the products, you have zinc nitrate, ammonium nitrate and water. Now upon adding the 3 steps, I will get the overall reaction. Now this reaction is not happening in a single step. Now let us try to balance this equation. So to get a balanced overall reaction, you have to balance every step. So individual steps if you balance, and then when you add the 3 reactions, you will get a balanced final equation. Now in the first reaction, you can see 1 atom of zinc on the left, 1 atom of zinc on the right. I will consider the nitrate together, that is NO3 minus. Here you have 1 nitrate ion, whereas on the right side, nitrate, there are 2 ions. So nitrogen and oxygen is not balanced. There is 1 hydrogen on the left and 1 hydrogen on the right. Now to balance nitrogen and oxygens, if I consider individually, there is 1 nitrogen here, whereas on the right side you can see 2 nitrogen atoms. There are only 3 atoms of oxygen, but here it becomes 3 into 2, it is 6. So in order to balance number of atoms of nitrogen and oxygen, I should write 2 as the stoichiometric coefficient for dilute nitric acid. Now what happens? 1 zinc on the left, there's 1 zinc on the right, 2 atoms of hydrogen here. So when this is 2, your nascent hydrogen has to be balanced. So then that becomes 2. So 2 and 2, number of hydrogens you have equal. Now this 2 is common for the entire thing. So you will have 2 nitrogens here, and here you already had 2 nitrogens. Now 2 into 3, it becomes 6. Here it is 2 into 3, it is 6. Now for the moment, don't consider this into 4. Regarding this, I'll be talking later. Now we'll move on to the second equation. Now in the second equation, you can see nitric acid and hydrogen, nascent hydrogen, giving ammonia and water. So there are 2 hydrogens on the left, whereas on the right side 3 plus 2. Totally there are 5. Nitrogen, it is balanced because you have 1 nitrogen each on either side. Number of oxygens, here there are 3. Coming to the right side, there is only 1 oxygen. Now in order to balance this, first let us balance number of oxygen atoms. Now here there are 3 oxygen atoms. On the right side, there's only 1 compound in which oxygen appears. So to make it equal, I will write 3 as the stoichiometric coefficient in the case of water, so that oxygen is balanced. Now when this is balanced, what happens to hydrogen? Nitrogen is anyway balanced. Hydrogen, here there are 3, and now here it becomes 3 into 2, 6. 6 plus 3, there are 9 hydrogens on the product side, but you see there are only 2 hydrogens on the reactant side, that is 1 here and 1 here. Now to make it equal, we have 9 here. So what I can do is, if I change any number for HNO3, then it will disturb the number of nitrogens and oxygens. So it is better to write 8 for the nascent hydrogen, so that it doesn't disturb any other element. Moving on to the third equation, you see there are 2 nitrogens on the left and 2 nitrogens on the right, balanced. 3 plus 1, 4 you have. Here it is 4, that is also balanced. Coming to oxygen, there are 3 oxygen atoms here, 3 here. So the third equation is already balanced. Now you see the second reaction, there are 8 nascent hydrogens, and in your final equation here you don't see any nascent hydrogen. Whereas in the first equation, now don't consider this, there were only 2 atoms of nascent hydrogen. To make this equal to 8, what you have to do? The entire equation has to be multiplied by 4. So now this bracket, it will start from here, ends up here. The entire equation, when it is multiplied by 4, then 4 into 2, you will get 8 nascent hydrogens, and here already there are 8 nascent hydrogens. So they get cancelled and they don't appear in your final equation. Now after doing the corrections, when you add up the 3 equations, you will get the final equation. Now see here, when I multiply the entire equation, that means for each compound or element you have to multiply it by 4. So here there was only 1. When I multiply it by 4, now you will have 4 atoms of zinc or 4 moles of zinc. Nitric acid appears in different places. Here it was 2. So 2 into 4, it became 8. And then second equation, there is 1, 9. Third equation, again there is 1 molecule of nitric acid. So together it will be 10 molecules of nitric acid. coming towards the product, then other things here, as I already mentioned, nascent hydrogen gets cancelled, ammonia also gets cancelled, so that doesn't remain in the final equation. Okay, then talking about the other products. Now you're multiplying the entire equation by 4, and hence now your zinc nitrate formula becomes 4 moles of zinc nitrate. And then other than this, when these two things are cancelled, what else is left? Ammonium nitrate, that is only 1 molecule, and you have 3 molecules of water.